I wake up and count my blessings. No more worries, no more stressing. With every loss there comes a lesson. Lord, all I'm asking is protection. I wake up and count my blessings.
Greetings, Massive. Translation: hello, everyone, and welcome to Conversations with me, a random nobody. Today's conversation, I actually had the opportunity to chat it up with an amazing family. Well, I actually only spoke with Elena, aka Mom, because Dad and baby Raina, they were busy doing baby stuff. And I reached out to this family because I saw a video of them on an Instagram page for Why I Sign. And they were basically explaining why they were learning sign language. And as I watched the video, I learned that these two parents had a deaf daughter, and they were learning sign language in order to ensure their ability to be able to communicate with her. Now, if that seems like it's no big deal to you, you might not be aware that 90% of deaf children are born to hearing parents, and only a few of those parents actually learn sign language. Now, can you imagine being a deaf child in a family where you're not even able to communicate with your parents, a sister, a brother, aunt, uncle, no one? And unfortunately, that is the reality for a lot of deaf and hard of hearing children across the world. But Elena and Ricky have decided that would not be their daughter's reality. After speaking with Elena, even though they don't have all the logistics worked out as yet, they do know that American Sign Language will be Raina's first language. And that's the way it should be. This conversation was inspiring because, as I mentioned, too many hearing families never learn sign, and that often leaves a deaf child feeling isolated within their own family. And this topic is I'm extremely passionate about, and I can go on and on. So before I get lost in the sauce, first, I did want to say thank you to everyone for continuing to support my podcast, for sharing it, for listening, to even mentioning it to someone that you know. I appreciate every single ounce of support, and I ask that you continue to show me support by leaving me a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts, as well as subscribing to the podcast. Well, now that I have that out of the way, here's my conversation with Elena, Ricky, and baby Raina. All right, well, mostly my conversation with Elena, but you get the point. So prior to finding out that your daughter was deaf, how much knowledge of the deaf community did you have?
Zero.
I
didn't know much. I just knew there were deaf people, and that was basically it. I think I met 2 deaf people throughout my entire life, and that was just like on a one lady was at church, and then there was another person that was a patient that was deaf, and then other than that, like, I didn't know much at all. So
wow.
it was definitely new.
Yeah, I can only imagine. Wow. So once you delivered her, before knowing anything, what was your initial reaction?
It was overwhelming. Just like I said, the whole pandemic, having a baby, there was just a lot going on. But, when we finally met her, it was just crazy because we didn't find out she was going to be a boy or a girl. We waited until birth. So it was just like all of these surprises. And actually, when she was delivered, they were like, "Hey, Dad, tell Mom, what the sex is." And he couldn't see. He had tears in his eyes, and he was like, "A boy." And they were like, "Guess again." They were like, "Guess again." And then it was, little Ray Ray. So.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
Oh my goodness! A boy that's like, no. It's a girl. So when they're born, do they screen them immediately, or is it like a couple days after?
They screen them immediately. And so she failed, well, she didn't pass any of the hearing tests at all. And I know after the first one, we were we were a little worried immediately. We were just like, oh no, what if she's deaf? Because again, at that point in time, we didn't know much. We just knew like deafness. It was so foreign to us because no one in our family is deaf. And so I remember the aide came back and she's like, are you guys okay? Just because she failed the test doesn't mean that she's deaf. Like, this happens all the time. And even up until we left, after she failed the second one, you know, they were still saying, this, she's fine. Like, this is normal when it's like a vaginal delivery. And so there was just like a lot of, you know, that weird reassurance, which looking back, I feel like healthcare providers shouldn't do that. You know, they should be more upfront with you.
Right.
You know, because we left thinking, oh, this is normal. You know, this is common and stuff like that. And it wasn't until we had multiple tests later that they confirmed that she was deaf.
So the doctors and nurses didn't mention like hearing aids or sign language, cochlear implants at that point?
At that point, no, because we had to go and get some outpatient. They wanted us to get outpatient tests. And I remember the first one we went to, they said, oh, your baby's ears are too small, so just come back in a month. And I was like, okay. So just dealing with all that on top of having a baby in general, was so stressful for us. And then we finally got an ABR test, I believe it's called.
Okay.
And that's where they confirmed that she had profound hearing loss. And so it was a little, the thing is we knew. we knew.
Okay.
Because we're very loud people. Not just even in talking, but just general stuff. I feel like we're so loud.
Oh my gosh.
And so doors would be slamming and we'd look at her and she's just like, you know, nothing is going on. And I think deep down we knew. And it was just when they confirm it, it's just like, oh, okay, she's deaf. What do we do now? And so,
right.
Yeah.
Okay. So in that time where you said that, you know, you guys knew, were you looking into like resources or anything like that? Or it was just like?
Not yet. Okay. I think we were looking into baby signs, and doing that. And like I said, I feel like I wasn't as proactive until I got like the final confirmation that, you know, she had hearing loss. And then after that, it was just like, okay, so we need to get our butt in gears.
Yeah.
You know, in gear. But it was hard because, like I said, I knew nothing about the deaf community at all. And when we told family members, they were kind of like, well, you know, and this, I know it comes from, you know, the purest part of that. They're like, you know, science has advanced and she'll be able to hear and this and that. And, you know, I didn't know about the whole conflict with that within the deaf community, but I felt like, why are you guys trying to fix my baby already? Like,
wow.
Like, yeah, it just felt weird to me because I was just like, even if there are those things to help her hear, like she's fine, you know, or like, you know, we come from a religious background. We're surrounded by a lot of, you know, church people and like praying for her hearing. It's just weird for me because even I felt weird, like praying like, God, please don't let her be deaf, you know, that kind of thing. And I actually find myself nowadays wishing I was born deaf so I could like know how to raise her better rather than wishing that she wasn't deaf. So yeah, it's just been a roller coaster.
I just have to say, like, talking to you and seeing the video of you and your husband signing, you guys are amazing. Like, you guys are one of a kind. Even to hear you say when people confronted you and said, oh, you know, there's technology, and for you to say, why are you trying to fix my child? Who said, like, that's, I've never heard, you know, and I'm sure there are other people, but wow, that's awesome.
It just felt weird at first because like immediately, like you're trying to find a solution to what you think is a problem. And just like, even now, like I don't have anything against cochlear implant or hearing aids or anything like that. But I do understand why. and how it's presented is such an issue and can be insulting towards people who are deaf and
Right.
the deaf community and stuff like that. So like I said, it was just a weird feeling, because it's just like, if a child was born any other way,
Mm-hmm.
any other type of disability, and it's just like, before telling a parent that it's okay, they're just like, well, you can do this. It's
Yes,
just,
because that's why I asked about what the doctors and the nurses said, because I know oftentimes it's like they go the medical route and it's like cochlear, hearing,
mm-hmm,
oral schools,
mm-hmm,
and the deaf community is never mentioned. So parents don't really know, what to do. But so to hear that they were kind of just trying to reassure you, but
mm-hmm,
then you kind of already knew, and for you to already have that inside of you, like, no, you're not gonna fix my baby. Like, my baby is fine. Like,
mm-hmm,
I just have to learn her language, right?
mm-hmm,
And she's perfectly fine. And that is just so rare. I work in education as far as interpreting is concerned, and I've been interpreting for like 13, 14 years. And the amount of students that I come across whose parents do not learn sign language is
mm-hmm,
a very high number. Like, it's so rare that our deaf kids, like deaf, not even a hard of hearing students, like
mm-hmm,
deaf, right? They come in and they're like gesturing to their kid or just speaking to them. And I'm
mm-hmm.
like, Mom, she can't hear, like, no, like, how does this
Yeah.
work at home? And the kids tell us stories of being feeling isolated, just feeling by
Mm-hmm,
themselves, not knowing what's going on,
mm-hmm,
and it's just so heartbreaking,
mm-hmm,
because and then they come to this hearing school
mm-hmm,
where no one else knows sign language and the interpreter is there. So we kind of have that relationship going, but I'm old. They don't want to be, you know what I mean? Like, we're not friends.
mm-hmm.
And it's so
Yeah.
hard not to cross that line
Mm-hmm,
sometimes. So for you and your husband and your family, I mean, that is just so amazing to
mm-hmm.
hear, to know. So how are you learning sign language?
Well, we signed up for 2 courses. There were, honestly, like, even before signing up for courses, a lot of the stuff that I learned about as far as the deaf community was from TikTok. And
What?
yes, and hashtags, like, I typed in, I remember when, a few days after we found out she was deaf, I just typed in the hashtag deaf baby on Instagram. And then
Uh-huh.
I saw all these posts,
Oh my
and
gosh.
everything ranged from, little babies wearing hearing aids, cochlear implants, to little ones that are signing and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. And it was just a whole new world. And then TikTok, where I feel like that's such a great platform for deaf creators.
Mm-hmm.
I learned so much there too. And what, like, deaf creators that, once again, are completely deaf, hard of
Yep.
hearing, have cochlear implants, wear hearing aids. And it was just like this large spectrum in this community that
Yes.
it just helped me learn so much more
Mm.
about them. And so with that, I learned, learning sign language from a deaf person is the best way to learn sign language.
Yes. Yes.
So we signed up for a class that's taught by these 2 sisters that are actually from New Jersey,
Mm-hmm.
and the Raina sisters, and they're both deaf. And then
Okay.
there's this thing called ASL at Home, which is uh, by deaf creators, and
Nice.
it's specifically made for hearing families and deaf children. So,
Nice.
that was helpful. We started doing that with our family for a little bit, but things,
Yeah. Life.
life, yeah.
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 Wow. So how, like you said, life. So how are you able to manage learning sign language, having a 8-month old,
Mm.
and everything else that ties into this? How are you guys managing?
I'd say, because I dropped down to part-time and I'm able to work from home now. Um,
Okay.
so I have a little bit more of an opportunity to sit down and learn. And my husband, he tries, and he knows a lot too.
Mhm.
But between working full-time in school, it's a lot for him. And, sometimes I read the comments in these, like, on posts, and they're like, why can't parents just learn sign language? And, like, I understand that. And I understand that only 30% of hearing families or something like that learn sign language,
Mhm.
but it's hard. It's really hard. It's not
I
easy. just to
I
like
can only imagine.
learn a new language. And so, but we're trying, and sometimes I feel like I'm not doing enough because I don't know what is enough, because hearing kids are just exposed to sounds all the time and
Right.
hearing you talk all the time. And so for me, trying to sign and do everyday things is really difficult. And so, she does little things here and there that just make us feel like we're on the right path. We've seen her sign milk before.
Aww.
And the first time she did it, we were on FaceTime with his sisters and we were all crying and stuff.
Ah!
Me and
Oh my
Ricky,
God.
we were just like, oh my goodness, like she's signing milk.
Yes.
And what other stuff? Over Christmas break, we were playing with animals and we are like, where's cow? And things like that. And she'll
Yeah.
reach for the animal and like I'm still in disbelief sometimes. I'm like, maybe that's just her favorite animal. Yeah. But I know there's gonna come a point in time where when she has those resources, deaf mentors and a teacher and stuff like that, she's gonna surpass us. Like I just know.
Yeah, she is.
Yeah. And
she's
so
gonna pick it up so fast.
Yeah. And so that's what worries me. I'm like, I need to learn faster and faster. But like I said, life sometimes just doesn't allow you to learn a new language like efficiently.
Simultaneously raising a newborn, pandemic, all of this stuff.
Yeah,
it's hard. But yeah, Mom, she's gonna be teaching you guys. She's gonna come on, seriously, it's amazing how even some of the students that I've worked with, once they go off to Gallaudet, if they choose to go there, or just other people that I've heard stories of, they just pick it up so fast. It's so natural. And it's imagine if this would have happened from birth, right? And I know you said you don't know if you're doing enough, but I think that you are, just exposing her to that language. Like you said, you're signing things. And I know maybe sometimes it's is this even working? But it is because just like you said, the hearing kids, they hear the sound. We're not talking directly to them, but they're still picking it up. So the same way that you're doing that for Raina, she is sticking in there, so just keep at it. Cause you guys rock for sure. Awesome.
We're trying.
Yes. I love that. And like you said, that percentage of parents who actually learn sign language, because I think it's 90% of deaf children have hearing parents. And it's a very small percentage that actually learn that language. So I think that what you guys are doing is so amazing. So going down this path of Big D deaf, are you familiar with Big D and Little D deaf? Okay.
Yes. Big D is they're within the deaf community, fully ASL.
Right.
And then Little D, I'm trying to figure out the difference between that.
So Little D is more of a, they're not involved in the deaf community and they're more involved into the hearing world.
Okay.
Or oral, which is fine. Everyone's different. But the path that you guys are taking, Big D deaf and culturally deaf is I guess the better term. What are you expecting for Raina?
Honestly, when it comes to we still don't know. I feel like there's so much pressure from all different sides that it really comes down to us as parents, and I've made it a point to talk to different people on the deaf spectrum, hearing parents that have kids that are deaf and just learning about their experiences and stuff like that. I know for sure me and my husband, his name is Ricky.
Hey, Ricky.
That me and Ricky want ASL to be her first language. Because no matter what like I said, it's difficult because I just, we still take her to see an audiologist and speech therapy and things like that, because that's what early intervention offers us. And in New Jersey, I actually just got an email today and I applied back in November for a deaf mentor. And
wow. I was
So
just about to ask you that.
yeah, so with like COVID, things are just moving at such a slow pace.
Yeah.
And, you know, when we go to see her audiologist, they're like, she should have had a deaf teacher. And then I was just like, well, yeah, I signed up for a deaf mentor. They're like, oh, it's different. And so
Oh,
there's just a
wow. A
lot of,
deaf teacher
like, a teacher of the deaf and then a deaf
already?
mentor. Yeah. And so I'm confused by it all, but I'm just kind of, like I said, I'm open to listening to all sides and then
Hmm.
allowing that to help me and my husband make a decision of what we want for
Right.
her. But we definitely agreed that ASL will be her first language, because even if she were at some point to get cochlear implant, without
Hmm.
that processor on, she's still deaf. And
Hmm.
I do see like a lot of people know, not like judging or anything,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
but parents that do implant their kids and they don't learn sign and stuff like that.
Hmm.
It's a little strange to me, because it's just like that's their language, that's who they are, that's them. And I can tell that with Raina,
Hmm.
because we would show her like baby signing times on YouTube, and
Hmm.
you can tell a lot of baby signing stuff is more geared to hearing kids learning signs. But
Hmm.
then I found something on Amazon Prime called Handsland by deaf people, and it's completely silent, but it's like a, not nursery rhymes that you've ever heard, but it's like ASL. I don't know.
Yeah.
I can't explain it, because
Yeah.
from what I've learned, it's like, the same way words rhyme in a nursery rhyme, that's the
The
equivalent
signs.
of having like the same hand shape for different
Yes.
words. So it's like five, paper, tree, things like that.
Hmm.
And she really watches it more than anything else. Where
That's
she's like,
awesome.
I mean, and football, but that's because Ricky has
Ah!
but she watches that and is just like in the zone. But anything else, like, I don't know. When I saw her so into it, I was just like, she knows that's her language. She knows,
Hmm.
like, something
Hmm.
about that visually is just for her, and she knows it. So
Wow.
yeah.
That's amazing. I am like goosebumped out over here because you sound so in tune, and it's not like it's just in you. Like it's so like I don't know what your plans are for the future, but I can see you like talking to other parents and being an encourager. Like it's okay, your child is deaf. You
Mhm.
know, you're going to be okay. They're going to be okay. I don't know if you've looked into that, if you've thought about being that in the future, but there's just something about you that you and your husband, because even when I saw the video on why I sign, like
Mhm.
the way you guys were signing, it was just like, what, they're just learning. Like
Yeah.
your husband was holding her and he's like, yeah, I'm Ricky, you know, like
I
it
know
was so natural. Like what, like who
even
are
though
you?
I know when I watch it back and I see him sign just like natural,
Yeah,
I'm like, you look so
yeah,
natural compared to me. You're
yes,
just like, yeah, I
no,
got this baby in my hand, and let me
right, I'm
just
like,
sign.
but
Yeah.
you as well, like the facial expressions, and it wasn't all like too extra.
Hmm.
Because when you're learning sign language for for the very first time, it's like I remember my ASL 1 class and even ASL 2, and some people just be like doing too much, like too much, but you were just like important, and like I was like, okay, okay, so that's why I wanted to reach out to you guys, because it's just so rare, man. It's
Hmm.
so rare, and it's just so beautiful to see, and it's awesome. It's really awesome. Um, and like you mentioned earlier, you said, there's a lot of pressure sometimes from everyone.
Hmm.
And I know how the deaf community can be, and I'm sure you're learning. And I'm gonna caption this. It's gonna be available, accessible to everyone. So if they want to come for me, they can come for me. I don't care. But like you said, you make those decisions for you and
Hmm.
Raina and your husband. You guys do that. Like you get the information and you listen to everyone and you take from whoever, but ultimately you do what's best for her.
Hmm.
And I think that's so important because, oftentimes people just want to tell you what to do
Hmm.
because their way is the best way. So I think that's awesome that that, it's you, Ricky, and Raina.
Yeah, and I think what's important for me is respecting the deaf community because
Yes.
um they are, and well, they have been and still are, like an oppressed group of people, and they're
Yes.
trying to hold on to their identity and preserve their language and things like that, and I understand that, and I feel like anytime an outsider tries to critique that,
Mm-hmm.
it's
Mm-hmm.
gonna, people are gonna be defensive because it's,
Yep.
it's their community. Like I completely get it.
Yeah.
And but then, also, like, she's our daughter. This
Yep.
is our family
Exactly.
too, and sometimes, like, geographically there are not a lot of resources around me, like where I
Mm.
live in South Jersey. And for us to be in a pandemic where we can have any speech therapist in New Jersey,
Mm-hmm.
we couldn't find one that knows ASL. You know what I mean? That knows ASL
Mm.
fluently, and it's frustrating because the
Yeah.
one we love her. She's great, and she knows signs, but I know it's
Mhm.
not ASL, and I
Yeah.
know, like,
Yeah.
you know, oh God, if she, I don't know if she's ever gonna listen to this, but like, she tried to give Raina a sign name, and me and Ricky were like,
No.
I don't think that's how that works. And we kind of ignored it the first time. And then Ricky had
Mhm.
said something like, oh, I think, only deaf people give sign names. And it still wasn't clicking. And we're just like, yeah, no,
It's
we're not
crazy
gonna.
how she's working with deaf and hard of hearing people and she's not even culturally aware of
Yeah.
deaf culture. That's something to think about. It's so much involved in the
Yeah.
deaf community and hearing loss and all of that stuff. And even where I work, it's like sometimes you do know that you're working with deaf people. Like it's
Mhm.
just interesting. There's so much knowledge that's just not out there to the world.
Mhm.
And I sometimes do compare it like Black culture, Black people, and just so much that has happened in that community, in our community, and with the deaf community, it's very similar
Mhm.
because like you said, they're oppressed, they're not acknowledged, and people think, oh, they feel so sorry for them, and
Mhm.
it's just like, no, just get to know them. And
Mhm.
it's just so much awareness, like even hearing impaired, using that
Mhm.
term. It's like, no,
Mhm.
they're deaf and
Mhm.
deaf for hard of hearing.
Yeah.
So, have you watched Mr. Holland's Opus?
No. Mm-mm.
You guys should definitely watch that movie. Have you ever heard of it?
No. Mm-mm.
Yeah, you guys should watch that movie, Mr. Holland's Opus. It's
Mr.
it's an
Holland's.
older, yeah, it's an older movie, but it's the couple ends up having a son who is deaf,
Mhm.
and he's deaf, and they go through
Mhm.
the whole what should we do. So it's
Mhm.
so interesting. I love that movie. I think you might like it. So
All right. I'm actually
check
writing
it
it
out.
down now.
Good, 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 good. And
Yeah.
again, I want to close by saying you guys are like Raina has amazing parents. She is so blessed. When she gets older, she is going to be so grateful. And I mean, I just see amazing things for you guys. And
Um,
think about that. Maybe starting a group or a support group for parents. I mean,
mhm.
even though you're still in it yourself, but
Yeah.
to have others, but you get it. You guys just get
Mhm.
it. And I think that's just so awesome. And you guys are a true blessing to Raina and to the whole community as a whole. So,
Thanks. I appreciate it. We're trying.
yes.
I think once we feel a little more secure, then we talk to other parents, because right now it's kind
Yeah.
of like, I don't know.
Right. Right.
You know?
I don't know either. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
But thank you so much for taking the time out. I know we went back and forth a lot, but I
mhm.
appreciate you for coming on to have this conversation with me, a random nobody.
Thanks for inviting me. Um,
Absolutely.
Raina's on something else today, so Ricky's with her. I wish he could have
I can
joined us.
Yeah, I can hear her
Yeah.
chatting it up with dad. Raina was definitely enjoying daddy daughter time while mommy was spilling all of her tea. So I hope that you guys were able to learn something from this conversation because deaf awareness is something that is continually growing and it's been getting a lot of attention as of late. And I'm actually going to include in the show notes the link to the video where I first came across Elena and Ricky, as well as other pages with deaf content creators. And it's important that you get this information straight from the source. So it's better to follow and get this information from actual deaf people. So I'll include some links in my show notes if you'd like to learn more about that. And if you have any further questions, you know that I am just a DM or email away. I do not bite, so please do not hesitate to ask. As always, please follow me on Instagram at Random Nobody Podcast. Follow me on Twitter, randomnobody1. You can send me an email at randomnobodypodcast@gmail.com. And please subscribe to my email list at www.conversationswitharandomnobody.com. That is it for this episode, guys. So until next time, walk good. Translation, be safe.
Started from the bottom, look where we end up, on top like Pac. All eyes on us, blessings. No more worries, no more stressing. With every loss there comes a lesson. Lord, all I'm asking is protection. I wake up and count my blessings.